Most people are not exhausted because life is difficult. They are exhausted because they are constantly trying to improve it. Usually, it doesn't feel dramatic. It doesn't arrive as a crisis. It arrives as a quiet discomfort, a sense that something could be better, cleaner, more aligned, more under control. At first, this feels harmless, even intelligent. Most people would call it growth. So the adjustments begin. Small ones, more thinking, more planning, more effort aimed at smoothing the experience of being alive. Often, this effort feels productive. It gives structure to uncertainty, turns unease into tasks, and tasks feel manageable. But over time, something subtle changes. The effort doesn't reduce tension. It maintains it. Life starts to feel like a project, something that requires constant calibration. Most people don't notice when this shift happens, because nothing is obviously wrong. Everything is functioning. They are informed, capable, active. Yet there is a quiet sense of resistance underneath it all, as if life is not responding the way it should. This resistance often leads to more effort, more rules, more systems, more attempts to optimize what already moves on its own. And slowly, improvement becomes a habit, not a response to a real need, but a reflex. Taoist thinkers noticed this pattern long ago, not as a flaw, not as a moral failure, just as a tendency. They observed that people often act in ways that feel purposeful, but subtly work against the natural movement of things, like swimming against a current, while believing effort itself is direction. The more force applied, the more exhausted the swimmer becomes, not because the destination is far, but because the resistance is constant. Most people assume that stopping effort means stagnation, that without striving, nothing happens. But life does not pause when effort pauses, continues, quietly, relentlessly. Wu Wei is often translated as doing nothing, but that translation feels misleading. It is not collapse, not withdrawal, not passivity, white medium star. It is the absence of interference. It is movement without friction, action without inner resistance, like breathing when you stop trying to breathe correctly. In modern life, this idea feels uncomfortable, white medium star, because effort is associated with worth, with identity, with safety. If something feels off, we assume it must be fixed. If discomfort appears, we assume it must be eliminated, white medium star. But discomfort is not always a problem. Sometimes it is simply a signal that nothing needs to be done yet. Many people confuse control with understanding. They believe that naming things makes them manageable, white medium star. Labels feel stabilizing. Categories feel reassuring. Yet the moment something is defined, everything outside that definition disappears from view, white medium star. The Taoists warned about this, not with urgency, just observation. They noticed that the more rigid the framework, the less reality fits inside it, white medium star. Life keeps changing, but the rules remain fixed, and tension grows in that gap. Ethics, values, systems, identities, all created with good intentions, all capable of becoming cages, white medium star, not because they are wrong, but because they are incomplete. Most suffering does not come from chaos. It comes from insisting on order. Where movement is required, white medium star, this insistence often shows up as moral certainty, as the need to correct, to improve, to save. The Taoists were skeptical of this impulse, not because compassion is harmful, but because imposed clarity often ignores complexity, white medium star. Trying to change the world from a place of inner tension usually multiplies tension, not harmony. The same pattern appears internally. The pursuit of happiness, white medium star. Most people treat happiness as an outcome, a result of conditions being met. When this happens, the present becomes a waiting room.
Achèvement arrive.
Relief follows briefly, then fades, and the chase resumes. Not because people are ungrateful, but because satisfaction was never meant to be sustained by acquisition. Taoist texts describe this gently. They don't argue against pleasure. They simply notice its instability. What is pursued intensely rarely remains satisfying for long, and the body pays the cost. Exhaustion, restlessness, a sense of being slightly out of sync. Another common form of effort is self-replacement, trying to become something else, not necessarily better, just different, a version that fits an ideal, a standard, an image. But ideals are comparisons frozen in time. They do not evolve with the person. Nature does not seem to operate this way. Nothing in nature competes with its own form. A tree does not try to become another tree. A river does not apologize for its shape. Difference exists without hierarchy. Yet humans create hierarchies constantly, and then suffer under them. When beauty is defined, ugliness is created. When good is defined, evil appears alongside it. Opposites arise together. The Taoists did not try to eliminate this. this. They noticed it. They observed that balance is not achieved by choosing sides, but by staying close to the center, not pushing too far, not pulling away, remaining available to what is. Zhuangzi described this as preserving wholeness, not by effort, but by restraint, not adding, not subtracting. Modern culture rarely rewards this posture. Stillness looks unproductive. Non-interference looks irresponsible. Yet many problems resolve themselves when they are no longer forced, not because they disappear, but because resistance was sustaining them. The Tao is often described as mysterious, not because it is hidden, but because it cannot be reduced. Attempts to explain it usually replace it with concepts, and concepts are not the thing itself. Understanding feels active. Letting go feels empty, but emptiness is not absence. It is space. The Taoists called this the fasting of the heart. Not accumulation, but forgetting. Forgetting the need to fix. Forgetting the need to define. Forgetting the urge to interfere. Not forever, just enough. When effort quiets, something else becomes audible. Not a revelation, not an answer, just alignment. Life moving, without being pushed. And perhaps the question is not how to improve life or how to master it, but what remains when improvement is no longer the priority. Not clarity, not certainty, just presence. And sometimes that is already sufficient. Love letter. What if effort is the problem? Love letter. What if effort is the problem? Most of the time, it doesn't feel like pressure. It feels like responsibility, like staying alert, like not falling behind. That's what makes it confusing. Effort looks productive. It sounds reasonable, and yet the tension doesn't leave. So the question stays open. Not whether something is wrong, but whether something is being pushed. That was never asking to be moved.